Hello, welcome to my channel, Doc Cholo's vlog for Kali exercise. In my channel, we promote healthy living with adequate physical exercise, and this we utilize the principles of Kali, which is a Philippine martial arts, for a moderate exercise suitable for seniors and, of course, those with restrictions. Okay, so let me introduce to you lesson 13. If you recall, we had lesson 12, which was Sinawali, the reverse type of Sinawali. We took up 11, which is the forward Sinawali, and 12, we had the reverse Sinawali. And this time we are going to modify still with Sinawali. Okay, we will be using the triangular pattern of Sinawali using two weapons, and this time I'd like to show you how we use two bolos doing Sinawali with the triangular pattern. We also combine the slashes and the stabs. Okay, so here goes. So we are forming an upright triangle using two bolos. And you'll note this is a stab and a slash combination. So in case you would want to have it slow-mo, you can do it slow motion with your editing video editing software, and you probably can follow the moves. So mind you, we are doing a triangular pattern using two bolos, and we also combine the stab and of course the stab and the slashes. Okay, so that's about lesson 12. So we are going to continue with our trivia. Okay, we will try to do trivia tonight. Okay, so let's try to get back to the definitions of Kali, Arnis, and Escrima. Let's give a good description of what this is. Okay, yesterday I was viewing some YouTube video, and there was a recent one 2 weeks ago. There's a Kali practitioner or an Arnis practitioner who was discussing Kali, Escrima, and Arnis in a different way. Okay, that's the more common narrative, the one that he was explaining. But unfortunately, it's not so accurate. Okay, especially when you go and refer with the Philippine law, which is very erroneous. That the law that mandates the incorporation of Arnis, Kali, and Screma into the uh, educational curriculum for physical education in the Philippines. Okay, and there's something wrong. Okay, let me explain. Arnis was developed during the Spanish occupation, and you would be able to recognize it because in Arnis, almost majority of the terminologies that they use here are Spanish words. If you don't look at the spelling, you would know that these are Spanish words. Of course, modified in spelling because there are some letters in the Spanish language that are not utilized in the Filipino language. So one thing that you're going to notice that Arnis and Screama are actually derived from the Spanish type of fencing. And I've mentioned a while ago that after the Spanish colonization towards the American occupation of the Philippines, there is an old text, okay, an old book entitled Stick Fencing. And the story of Arnis and escrima actually, okay, escrima is fencing using either a saber sword, a foiled sword, or a rapier, okay? And these were common weapons used in Europe, especially Spain. The Spaniards, when they came, were wearing a saber sword, and that's how they encountered hand-to-hand combat with swords. And the Filipino natives were using kali. Okay, so the techniques in escrima where the techniques in Screama are the techniques used in Arnis and Screama, the Philippine type. Okay, they call it the Filipino martial arts, and I'm not sure how justified using Philippine martial arts for a series of sequences and techniques with Spanish names and derived from Spanish Screama. Okay, and that's that's something that I really would. But there is a modern Arnis, which was developed very much later. Modern Arnis incorporates, okay, still the stick fencing, okay, incorporates it with some jujitsu, some judo, and grappling, and that's they label as a modern Arnis. Mind you, the first club of Arnis was actually called Fencing Club in Cebu. Okay? And that makes it a not so Filipino martial arts. I don't know how they formulated and called it Filipino martial arts when in fact it is not originally Filipino. Okay. The next point is Kali. Okay. Kali is not, Kali actually is a common uh, sword, a kind of sword, or a family of swords, a bolo, a sharp bladed instrument used not only in the Philippines, but in the southern part of the Philippines, especially including the peninsula, the Zamboanga Peninsula, the islands of Basilan, Holo, Tawi-Tawi, including part of Borneo, which encompasses the Sultanate of Sulu, the areas covered by Sultanate of Sulu. There are similar sword and techniques of sword in Malaysia, Indonesia, and Thailand as well. Very similar. In fact, they utilize some similarity with the Kalis or Keris. Okay, in the Philippines they call it Keris, and it has been popularized as Kali. And let me explain why. There are several other narratives explaining the possibility of, Kalis is taken from the word kamut, which is hands, and and li, kamut lihok, which I really doubt it. Okay, the real story, I have discussed this in previous videos. It's called Kali. Okay, it's actually coming from the word kalis. Kalis, actually, the way it's being pronounced, it should be pronounced as kalis. Kalis. Okay, and it became Kali. First of all, the reason why is because when we were occupied by the Spaniards for 400 years, that's about 1898 to 9 to that's from 1521 to 1898. That was the Spanish colonization of the Philippines, which is about 400 years. Okay, the Spaniards was met by warriors using Kali. Okay, and as the story goes, there is a narrative, a journal describing how Magellan was killed. And he was killed by a spear. He was hit by a spear in the legs, and he was attacked by multiple attackers, native, using Campilan, and that's how he died. Campilan is a member of the Calis family of blades. Okay? Campilan, very common in the southern part of Mindanao. Okay. Now, Calis, okay, Calis, actually it's called Calis. Okay. Now, in Spaniard, the Spaniards have difficulty pronouncing the S. And when they pronounce a word with S at the end, the S is minimized vocally, meaning to say that the S is hardly heard. Okay. By the way, I can speak Spanish. In our place, in my place, we speak Chabacano, which is Spanish. Mostly Spanish words being used in Chabacano. Okay. And one thing is that what you will notice in Spanish that language is that the S is minimized. So the Calis was called Cali. Okay. Now, why is it Kali? Okay. Commonly in Thailand, Indonesia, and Malaysia, it's actually in the southern Philippines. It's actually Keris, Keris. In the southern part of Mindanao, including the archipelago as well as the islands, reaching from Sulu, Tawi-Tawi, and the neighboring islands of Borneo, the dialect is spoken there have difficulty pronouncing the R and the L, and therefore if it is Keris, then it becomes Kalis here in our locality, and so it became Kalis, but the Spaniards called it Kali. Why? Because they have minimized the S at the end. So I hope you understand that Kali is not Arnis, it's not escrima. Okay? Kali is its very own, and it's purely a family of sword, and the techniques they use there is different from Arnis and escrima. The techniques slightly vary with the Filipino type of Kali, with the Malaysian and Indonesian Thailand style. Okay, but very similar, 95% similar. The knives that they use, the bolo that they use, almost the same. The moves, very different. Okay, because the real Kali uses not only a bolo but also a shield. The shield in itself is a partner for the bolo, and the shield acts as a weapon and a shield as well. And so it's pointed at the lower edge. The boundaries could hurt boundaries, and they could use it as a weapon as well. And it is handled by the hand. It's held by one hand. Okay, and you can do it like this. And so you would see pictures of how the natives, there is a shield and a bolo, and that's what they call as Kali. Okay, uh, it is actually accurately more or less Kalis. Okay, in Mindanao we call it Keris, Kalis and Keris, very similar language difficulties, and that's why it's totally different. Okay, now Arnis is derived from the fencing or the escrima that Europeans do. Okay, Even the stance. I'll show you how the stance. Okay, the stance with the right foot with the stick in front, and the movement which is linear. You see, the words are actually a description of the technique, such as doblete, largo mano, corto mano, sombrada, retirada, and so on and so forth. There are several words. Actually, 90%, maybe 85 to 90% of the words used for the techniques in Arnis and Escrima are Spanish, and even the techniques have been modified from the from the Spanish type of Escrima. The only problem is now, okay, I have no question about how they do it, but or considering Kali as the same as Arnis and Escrima is something of an injustice to Kali, because when you say Philippine martial arts, okay, Kali is a Filipino martial arts. It's not only Filipino. It is inherent. The the type of the fighting style, the fighting system, is not it's not only in the Philippines. It includes those people from the south of the Philippines, including people from Borneo, even from Indonesian islands there, Malaysian and Thailand. But generally, because the area part of Borneo Island, which is part of Malaysia, and of course Indonesia. Borneo is inhabited by Indonesians as well as Malaysians, and of course Filipinos. And the reason why is because part of it, one half of Borneo Island, was part of the Sultanate of Sulu. The Sulu archipelago, they had a sultan who owns all the island there, the kingdom, including part of the southern part of Mindanao, and most of the southern part of Mindanao, which included the Zamboanga Peninsula, where I am. Okay, and that's Kali. It was never influenced by any other type of martial art. Okay, Filipino martial art, let it be as Filipino martial art. But when you say Kali, Arnis, and Skrima are the same, it's not the same. Kali is a different kind of fighting system than Arnis. Okay, Arnis is okay, but then again, to label it as a Philippine martial art, that's okay if you are referring to the modern Arnis, but it's not Kali. Okay, I'm not going against any system. Okay, what I'm trying to say is that to make things accurately uh, justified. Okay, when you say Kali is not the same as Arnis, it's not the same as Eskrima. All of these, Arnis and Eskrima, have been derived from the Spanish art of Eskrima, which is fencing. But because the bladed weapons of the Philippines were banned during the Spanish regime, reaching to the American regime, the Americans took over the Philippines in 1898 up to 1946, and it was banned. And so what they did, they had to make an alternate. An alternative was a rattan stick. And so the art of stick fencing was born during this time. Kali, part of Mindanao, this part of the Sultanate of Sulu was not entirely taken by the Spaniards. And so what happens is that a lot of elites, Filipino elites who were collaborators with the Spaniards, when the Spaniards colonized the Philippines, they made friends with the influential people, and the influential people designated members of their workers to be part of the Guardia Civil that they call it. They were trained by the Spaniards for escrima, but this time they were using as training the rattan stick, and so they called it stick fencing, escrima. Okay, so this Guardia Civil were the ones manning. They were acting as guard. They were trained how to shoot the rifle. They were trained to use the saber sword. But the indigenous Filipino natives, the warriors of the Philippines in this part of the country, in the southern part of the Philippines, were distributed in a lot of mountainous place. They were isolated very far from the big cities. Okay, and so they remained to be a force to reckon with, and they were using mainly spears and a blade system called Kalis or Keris. And so that's it, folks. I hope well you can check it out if you are diligent enough to search for the history. You're going to see the real truth of the history. So that's our trivia for tonight, folks. Thank you for listening, and I hope if you haven't subscribed, please do subscribe. Okay, and you may share this video to others so that they may know the trivial information that we are taking up here. And by the way, I'm doing Kali and not Arnis. Okay, I may be using the stick, but we are using the stick here in my blog as a sword. Okay, and I'm not promoting violence, like for example, combat, but we will be dealing with some techniques of combat later on. But mainly, our main concern here is to develop strength, coordination, and grace, and of course, creativity when you do your own sequences. So thank you very much, folks. I hope you can subscribe and share and like. Thank you.